The African European tour here has taken us to quite the variety of much of the same stuff, I would say, and it's really amazing to hear both the spirituality and the drums and the rhythms and the colonialism and the struggle for identity and the um, shared fate, I guess, um, south to north, continent to continent. And it really resonates also with what we heard yesterday from New Zealand. And what is going on in India as we speak without hearing about it, and also what is going on in Cameroon without us hearing about it. So there's a task for us and for everybody else, which is to restore humanity and to create a 21st century that is meaningful. The title for this is "What Does It Mean to Be Human in the 21st Century?" And if I were to say something based on what we have heard, I would say it is coming to the realization that we are connected, and that we have these multitudes of heritages, and that they're all valuable, and we would be an impoverished, poorer species if we lost any of them, because all of these many cultures are ways of meaning making, they're ways of being human, they're ways of making sense of this world. And some of these traditions are thousands, if not 10,000s of years old, and others are newer. But they all come out of the same struggle, which is to be humans, human children, teens, adults, and wise elders, and trying to pass on what is most important to the next generation, which is bringing us to the 21st century, because there is a disconnect between the generations. And I think there is a disconnect in worldviews and an understanding of the world. And I feel myself an honorary boomer whenever I think of cyberspace and the real world as two different things, whereas people who are younger than myself see it as the same, because they grew up with it. And we tend to understand the world we grew up in as the world. And then when you live long enough, you realize that, oh, there isn't just the world. There's the world that we have created one way or the other. And it's different around the globe, and it's different across time. So 21st century, I mentioned in the title for this short presentation, hypermodernity and metamodernity, and I'm not gonna not talk about that. Those of you who were here yesterday will have to bear with me that you are going to hear the same thing twice. But the point is that I think we're at a sort of fork in the road, the path for humanity, where not least the technologies are defining two very different paths. And they are, of course, defined by the threat of climate change, of mass extinction of species, and all the other disasters that we've brought upon ourselves. But the hypermodernity specifically refers to the way that we use technology, or the way that technology can come to use us. I think it is a future where everything is calculated, run by AI, where the humaneness and the spirituality that we have been exploring here the past 2 days is seen as having no value and is being ignored, and where the embodiment, the physical being, the physical part of being human and the emotional part of being human is just reduced to a sort of an add-on to what is real, which will then be the exponential complexification of technology, and the way that that will reach a singularity at some point when AI will be smarter than us and will be running everything. And that singularity, that point in time, may be closer than most people prefer to think about, because there are some mathematicians who have been looking at the exponential growth of complexity and have figured out that the singularity will be in 2027 or 2029. And there are two mathematicians that say the one year, and one mathematician who mentions the other. And I guess won't make much of a difference which year it is. What makes a difference is that people are not just going to sit around and see their meaning making falling apart and their freedom and connectedness and all their opportunities disappear due to technological development, and also not going to sit peacefully around and seeing the climate change and their food disappear. And now we have the war in Ukraine, and we have wars in other places, but the war in Ukraine affects also the food production tremendously. I mean, at a really serious level. War always does that, but Ukraine produces 10% of the wheat and about 80% of the sunflower oil. And that is going to have disastrous consequences for global stability about a year from now, if the annual production of wheat and sunflower oil is changing due to this war. So we're facing some major challenges, and we could avoid that, and we could have avoided it, but we didn't pay attention, and we didn't make the necessary decisions in due time. I don't think it's too late. I actually think we do have a lot of positive opportunities ahead of us. And we were talking about cyberpunk yesterday, and we can use technology for improving our situation. We can actually envision a brighter and greener and sustainable and more meaningful and fun future. So I think we should be working for that. And my take on that is the metamodernity, where we learn from the past and we take all this cultural heritage. And that is one of the reasons why we've brought in all these different traditions into this global Bildung festival and the journey around the Beat, because there is wisdom everywhere, and there is this connectedness to nature, and I don't think we can live without that connectedness to nature. We've tried for 3,000 years, depending on where we are, definitely for the past 500 years in Europe, and it doesn't go very well. And even if we lived on a planet with an indefinite, what's it called? Eternal surface. That's not the word. I can't find the English word right now. Infinite surface, where we could just expand and keep growing and growing and growing. Even if that were possible, I think that we would suffer spiritually and emotionally if we did not connect with nature and just kept exploiting it. So we do have to connect with nature, and that's where we can learn a lot from the prehistoric indigenous cultures. And our species existed for more than 200,000 years, living in that nature and being part of that nature, thereby not saying that they were peaceful and everything was joy and happiness, because it wasn't. And nature can be fierce. I'm not going to mention who said it, but somebody said the thing about going out into nature and feeling relaxed and the spiritual feeling. And that's a thing you can do when you live in a modern country where we've killed all the snakes and the mosquitoes and the wolves and stuff like that. But if you do live in one of the indigenous nature neighborhoods, there are all kinds of nasty creatures that you have to beware of, and that you have to learn to live with. And nature can actually be very dangerous. But still, so can we, and we need to connect with that nature. And then there's the pre-modern that I really think we need to bring along with us. Lene touched upon it with the history of Ukraine, but we also have it in the great religions. The rabbi from yesterday quoted the Hebrew Bible. We have, as a species and locally, continentally, all these traditions where we have in writing and ritual and storytelling that has been passed on the struggles of previous generations. And they've turned it into aesthetics and into music. And we had the rhythm. We have had also drums. We haven't had any organ music or classical music. We'll get blues later tonight. But we have all these aesthetic traditions that move us emotionally. And we have an immense richness. And so there's so many aspects of being human that can just elevate us and connect us. And then we have the modern world with science. I'm so happy about the coronavirus virus vaccines, not the virus, but the vaccines. And the technologies that we're using right now, and clean water in the tap. And I was just up getting myself some coffee in the cafeteria here at my office. And so I think there's so many advantages to the modern world, including human rights and equality and democracy, and the fact that as a woman I can speak right now, and I will not have the French Inquisition coming in the door and schlepping me away, though nobody expects the French Inquisition, Spanish Inquisition. So anyway, so we have all this amazing stuff from the modern time, and then we have the postmodern ability to deconstruct everything. And part of what we've been doing here with bringing in these many voices from around the globe is actually to deconstruct part of the Western narrative about our fantastic contribution to everything around the globe. We tend to forget the dark side of it. So I think that what we've been doing here is, I mean, that was the intention, was to contribute to metamodernity and to avoid the hypermodern.